It was an ordinary afternoon when President Donald Trump's motorcade rolled quietly through a small town in Pennsylvania. Unlike his usual appearances at rallies or meetings, this stop wasn't scheduled. He had been on a long drive after a private visit with farmers and veterans. And somewhere along the road, he found himself craving something familiar, something simple. Fried chicken. "Pull over there," Trump said to his driver, pointing at a small fast food restaurant tucked between a gas station and a laundromat. Inside, the restaurant buzzed with everyday life, construction workers grabbing a quick lunch, a mother with her kids, and a few high school students hanging out. No one expected to see the president walk in. As Trump entered, the chatter hushed, replaced by whispers and gasps. He smiled faintly, raising his hand as if to say, "Don't make a big deal of this." For once, he wasn't here as the politician or the businessman, he was just a hungry man. The staff behind the counter froze for a moment, then quickly scrambled to put on their brightest smiles. Standing at the register was a young cashier, barely 20 years old, with tired eyes and a name tag that read, "Layla." "Welcome, sir," she said, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly. Trump leaned forward and ordered, "I'll have the fried chicken meal, extra crispy, large fries, and a Diet Coke." But as Laya typed in the order, she hesitated, staring at him with something beyond nerves, something that carried weight, pain, and courage. And then, with the whole restaurant watching, she spoke words that stopped Trump cold. Laya's voice cracked slightly as she spoke, but her eyes never wavered. "Sir, before I ring that up, I need to say something. I wasn't sure I'd ever get this chance." The restaurant went silent. People leaned forward in their seats. Forks paused midair, drinks held halfway to their lips. Even the kitchen staff peeked through the window to see what was happening. Trump, usually quick with a response, found himself oddly still. "Go on," he said carefully. Laya swallowed hard, her hands tightening around the register. "My dad, he used to bring me here every Friday night. He loved fried chicken, just like you. But he's not here anymore. He was a Navy veteran. He died last year after struggling with medical bills we couldn't afford. And I just need you to know, sir, that sometimes people like me feel invisible." Her voice trembled, but she stood her ground. "So when you order fried chicken here, it's not just food to me. It's a reminder of him and of how many families are still fighting battles even after their loved one's service is over." The air grew heavier. A child whispered to his mother, "Is she talking to the president?" Trump's hand resting on the counter curled slightly. His face, so often animated with confidence, softened. He didn't expect this. Not here. Not now. He glanced at her name tag again. Laya, just a cashier in a fast food restaurant. But her words carried more weight than some speeches he'd heard in Congress. For the first time in years, Trump hesitated. Not over politics, not over policy, but over a simple meal that suddenly didn't feel so simple anymore. For a long moment, Trump said nothing. The room held its breath. Finally, he leaned on the counter, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Laya, tell me about your dad." Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected him to ask. "He was a quiet man," she began, her tone softening. "His name was Samuel Hayes. He served 20 years in the Navy. He loved country music, old trucks, and fried chicken. Every Friday, no matter how hard the week was, he'd take me out. It was his way of making sure we had at least one moment that felt normal. But when he got sick, things changed. We lost the house and I had to start working here to help my mom." Trump nodded slowly, his gaze distant. Something in her words tugged at a memory. His father taking him for burgers after baseball practice. A simpler time before the weight of business and politics. "Your dad sounds like a good man," Trump said finally. "A man who gave his country everything." Tears welled in Laya's eyes, but she blinked them back, unwilling to break in front of the crowd. "He was the best man I knew, and I guess I just wish more people cared about the families left behind." Trump straightened, his usual commanding presence returning, but now with a new edge of gravity. The restaurant was still silent, everyone waiting for what he would say next. Instead of replying, he did something no one expected. He stepped away from the counter and turned to the people around him. "Folks," he said, his voice carrying, "this young woman just reminded me of something important." The crowd leaned in, sensing something unusual. Trump's tone was not political, not rehearsed. It was personal. "This cashier just told me about her father, a Navy veteran," he said, gesturing toward Laya. "And I want everyone here to hear it, because sometimes we forget the battles our heroes' families keep fighting after the uniform is gone." Laya's cheeks flushed. She hadn't meant for her pain to become public, but the weight of her story was now shared. An older man in the corner nodded knowingly. A mother wiped away a tear. Even the teenagers who had been laughing earlier sat still. Trump turned back to Laya. "You gave me more today than a meal ever could. You gave me a reminder of what really matters." Laya swallowed, struggling to find words. "Thank you, sir. I miss him so much." For the first time, the clatter of trays and chatter returned softly, but now it wasn't ordinary noise. It was filled with respect for a girl who had spoken her truth. Trump hadn't touched his order. The fried chicken sat like a symbol of something bigger: comfort, family, loss, and remembrance. Laya's voice cracked as she added, "Sometimes when I walk home, I still expect to see Dad's old pickup parked outside. He'd sit on the porch humming, waiting for me, but now it's just an empty chair." Her words painted a picture so vivid that Trump's chest tightened. He thought of the times he too had seen empty chairs at military events, places where a father, mother, or spouse should have been. "Laya," he said gently, "you're carrying his memory and everything you do. That chair isn't empty. It's a reminder of a life lived with honor." She blinked rapidly, her composure breaking. Customers nearby dabbed their eyes. Even the manager behind. The counter, unsure of what to do, quietly placed a hand on her shoulder. Trump didn't rush. He allowed the silence to sit, heavy but sacred. Then he spoke again. "I came in here for fried chicken, but I think what I really needed was your story." The young cashier looked down, tears slipping past her resolve. "I didn't mean to make this about me." Trump shook his head. Sometimes the strongest voices are the ones that speak when it isn't expected." From the back, a growly voice broke the quiet. "She's right." All eyes turned. An elderly man wearing a faded navy cap slowly stood. His hands trembled, but his voice carried strength. "I served, too," he said. "And I've seen too many brothers and sisters come home only to fight another war. Poverty, illness, loneliness. What she said isn't just her story. It's all of ours." The room fell deeper into silence. Laya's eyes widened. She didn't know the man, but his words felt like her father's echo. Trump nodded firmly. "That's why we need to keep listening, not just to the soldiers but to the families who carry the weight after them." The veteran's chin lifted. "Exactly, sir." A hush settled again, broken only by the beep of the fryer behind the counter, but no one cared about the food anymore. Laya finally whispered, "Dad would have liked you hearing this." Trump met her eyes, and I think he would have liked knowing you had the courage to say it. In that small-town restaurant, the walls seemed to close in, not with pressure, but with unity. Strangers weren't strangers anymore. They were witnesses to something greater than themselves. Word spread quickly. By the time Trump sat down at a corner table, not to eat, but to listen, more people had slipped inside. Customers held their phones, not to record a spectacle, but to capture a moment that felt different from politics. Trump gestured for Laya to sit with him. She hesitated, wiping her hands nervously on her apron, then slid into the booth. "You've got strength," he said. "I've met generals who can't speak the way you just did." She gave a small laugh through her tears. "I don't feel strong, sir. I feel tired." That simple honesty broke something in the room. A mother nearby nodded, whispering, "I know that feeling." Trump leaned forward. Your father's service lives through you, and sometimes the strongest people are the ones who keep going, even when they're tired." The cashier looked at him, startled by the gentleness in his voice. Behind them, the veteran in the navy cap had tears in his eyes. He whispered to a teenager beside him, "This is history, kid. Remember this?" Trump didn't notice the phones or the whispers. For once, the spotlight wasn't on him. It was on a young woman whose truth had silenced a president. The restaurant. Manager, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, approached the booth cautiously. She carried a tray with the fried chicken Trump had ordered. "Mr. President," she said softly, "I know this meal may not feel important right now, but it was her dad's favorite. Maybe we could honor him with it." She placed the tray on the table and stepped back. Trump glanced at Laya. She nodded slowly, tears shimmering again. "Yeah, Dad would have loved that." Without ceremony, Trump lifted a piece of chicken, then set it gently back down. "Before we eat," he said, looking at the small crowd now gathered, "let's take a moment for all the chairs that feel empty, for all the voices we've lost." The restaurant fell into silence. Heads bowed, hands.